This is the April 3rd, 2019 meeting of the Finance Committee. We have 5 items on our agenda tonight. 4 items. We're going to first look at the transfers. We have 1 transfer request. Continue reviewing the budget, the FY 2020 budget, and then we can discuss the annual town meeting warrant. So the first thing is a transfer. This transfer transfers from the DPW cemetery. It's for office supplies. The present balance in the account is $785.52, and the amount requested is $1.55. Excuse me, it's coming from office supplies and going to the supplies and equipment account for copy or rental use for remainder of FY 2019.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is look at several budgets tonight. First on the list is the reserve fund. Okay, and Ed, maybe you can address the difference in the amounts compared to this year's request compared to last year's.
Sure. So, other than the bylaw employees, which we built in an increase through the line items within each department, the union contracts, on the other hand, we're currently negotiating at the table and provided no increase within the departmental budgets. This is where we provided a sum of money to meet those contractual obligations once we successfully negotiate them, beginning July 1. So that's why there's an increase in that line item, Madam Chair.
Okay, and I should have read the amount. The department request is $490,000, and that and the appropriation in FY 2019 was $280,000. If I can ask, Ed, how many contracts are being negotiated right now?
10.
10. Okay.
They all expire on June 30th of 2019.
Through the chair, what's the term of the contracts? Are they all 2 or 3 year contracts?
3 year.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions? Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the $490,000 in the reserve fund?
Motion to approve.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so the next budget we're looking at is the law. The department request is $120,000, and that is the same as the town manager request, and the appropriation last year was also $120,000. Any questions? Mm-hmm.
Briefly, was this where we had, there was an ongoing litigation that's been sort of over the last several years? Is that here, or is that a special line somewhere?
No, that's here. And I want to inform the Finance Committee tonight that I will be bringing in an additional transfer next week. We did receive a large invoice from Labor Council relative to that ongoing case. I know we brought in a transfer about several weeks ago for $15,000. We already have eclipsed that. So I thought and this invoice that we received is through January. So I think I gave some information to the Finance Committee when that $15,000 transfer was before you, that things were quieting down, although I thought at the time that invoice represented matters that, quite honestly, I thought were already heard and were simmering down. That wasn't the case. So I'll try to get a better handle on especially that one case that really has caused us some concern. Has required that we brought some transfers before you. But going into next year, when we don't expect that type of activity, we believe that case will hopefully be settled by then.
That's what I was going to ask. Are we, it seems like this one's been going, the arbitration and all the process that's there. Is this one that's going to go to trial or reach some sort of end? I mean, it's...
So the actual briefs and hearings, it's going before an arbitrator, and the individual has, I believe, up to 90 days to make a decision on this case. I think all of the legal prep work leading up to the point where the arbitrator has his 90 days is behind us, but I'll try to get a better update for you by next week.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is the law account. The town manager recommendation is $120,000. Do I hear a motion to recommend?
Motion to recommend?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, the next account we're looking at is Town Hall. The department request is $50,500, as is the town manager recommendation, and that is an increase of 29.49% to last year's appropriation, fiscal 19, which is $39,000. So an increase of $11,500. Any questions?
Just the basis for the large increase, even though it's not a big dollar amount, just a big percentage.
There are several items that are really driving these costs, and quite honestly, these are adjustments to bring it more in line with the 3-year average, because we have brought in transfers to the Finance Committee over the last several years. In terms of the equipment maintenance, this primarily has to do with new copier leases. So we had to get a new copier for the senior center, which their copier died, and we also replaced a copier on the first floor and a copier here. Their terms had expired. That also includes a maintenance for some new laser printers as a result of some new employees, and it also pays for the maintenance of the copiers as well as all of our printers. In terms of building maintenance, primarily this is being driven by a faulty alarm system. The alarms have been going off. It requires, they trip. The fire department is coming up and responding to those calls every time one goes off. The system is aged, and that's why we built in a new system in the capital under the manager's budget for $22,500. So hopefully when we get a new system in place, hopefully it will allow us to contain those costs.
Okay.
So a quick question through the chair. Maintenance, the copiers seem to appear in different places throughout the budget. So this one's in an operating budget. I think if I recall, there was somebody had theirs. Was there somebody to have it in their CIP?
I think the library has it in their own only because we have to capture 100% of their costs because of the minimum contribution that we have to provide to meet their operational budget on the state level.
Okay. I mean, is this something that the differential between the CIP, where some things technology-wise, when we have technology in here as a plan for replacement of servers and laptops and things like that on a schedule, would copiers fall into that? Is that beneficial to look at those more as a capital thing than it is a yearly operating?
I think we look at the cost analysis when those leases come up. We do not have to replace them. If the volume of copies on that copier is below the norm, we'll try to continue that and just pay the maintenance on that. It all depends what they have to offer at the time. We look at the state contract pricing to see what we can get, the best bang for our buck, basically.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? So the town manager recommendation for the town hall budget is $50,500 with a 29.49% increase to last year. Do I hear a motion to recommend?
Motion to recommend?
Second?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. All right, our next budget is general services. The department request is the same as the town manager recommendation, $1,455,978, and that includes a $10,000 increase to last year's appropriation, or a 0.69% increase. Okay, so I'll open for any questions.
Just through the chair, the streetlights, can you just give us an update as to the project that's relative to the replacement and identification of streetlights and where that stands?
So the LED streetlight project is back on track. There was a period of time where we had to provide some additional insurance, or N-Grid wasn't comfortable with the arrangement under the terms of the contract. We resolved that. It is my understanding that this project is going to be completed by the end of May. So we did get an extension on the Green Communities Grant, which previously had a termination date of April. We got that extended because of the delay in that contract with the approval of the state. The equipment has been ordered. They are going to stage the equipment at the JB school in the auditorium or in the gym until the project is completed. So that's where they'll store the equipment. That's where they'll store their vehicles until the job is completed. When the job is completed, we're going to apply for some incentive grants. You can only do it at the completion of the project. That will allow, hopefully, an additional $35,000 that we can use. So we don't have to use a portion of the amount that we were authorized to borrow. We did go out for a short-term ban to bridge that gap, because on a cash flow basis, we have to pay these bills. Hopefully with that reimbursement coming in, offsetting that ban before we ultimately bond our final share, which is small dollars. I believe the initial authorization was $300,000. We only currently have a ban for, we borrowed $135 and we have a ban of about $82. So it's about $200. Hopefully our obligation will come in around $160 out of the $300.
And any ballpark, the anticipated savings that we'll see potentially, maybe not next fiscal year, but the following? We're at about $124,000 for electricity.
I think the savings is estimated to be between $50,000 and $70,000. So hopefully, and we have no history to prove that, so I'm not comfortable reducing the budget at this time. Additionally, there will be some increased costs in electricity for our, even including streetlights, based upon today's rate. But certainly, it's not going to approach $70,000. So we're hoping to realize a savings even in 2020. So we may be able to make an adjustment at the fall town meeting, reducing that, but I'm not comfortable making a recommendation at this time.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yep.
Ed, the insurance and bonds didn't go up that much. Is that like a firm number, or is that due to good loss experience?
That's just an estimate. We won't know that number until June, certainly well after the action of town meeting. So if we need to make an adjustment in that line item, it will be at the fall town meeting. And we have historically made an adjustment at the fall town meeting.
Okay.
I'm trying to remain hopeful that rates will benefit us, but I won't know till, like I said, till probably mid-June.
Okay.
Any other questions? I have a couple of questions. Ed, how much does that insurance and bond line include the insurance that we're paying for the two schools that are empty, Mary D. Stone and JB?
No, we charge that directly to that $46,000 line item.
Oh, into that article in the warrant. Okay. And my other question is just the gas, oil, and diesel line. Do you feel that what are the prices right now? I remember they were fluctuating very wildly for a while.
Yeah, they're creeping up slowly, and I think that there's an expectation that happens leading up to Memorial Day weekend. There seems to be a lot of travel at that time. Prices seem to edge up. I don't know. That's really a wild card. I don't know where that's going to go, but based upon what we spent in fiscal 18 and what we're spending this fiscal year, $190,000 seems to be adequate at this point.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? So we're looking at the general services budget. The request is And the town manager recommendation, $1,455,978, and that represents a 0.69% increase to FY19 appropriation. Do I hear a motion to recommend?
Motion to recommend?
Second?
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, our next budget that we're looking at is emergency management. The department request and town manager recommendation are the same, $14,000, and that is flat to last year, 0% increase. So, any questions? No? Okay, do I hear a motion to recommend $14,000 for the emergency management line?
Motion to recommend?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Also, thank you. All right, next budget, Veteran Services, 01543. I think it's part of Department of Public Services. So Department of Public Service, I think it's in that one.
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. So we're looking at the town manager recommendation is the town manager recommendation for Veterans Services is $92,750, which is an increase to last year's appropriation, which is $75,000. So, and I know, if I can say, Eddie, I know that Julie had been here and talked about, now that our veterans agent retired, what we're going to be doing moving forward. Maybe you could just talk about that, because I see the increases in that salary line.
So you are correct. When VSO left, we were under a grandfathering agreement with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Our community is required to have a full-time VSO based upon our population. But because we were a part, and we entered into a regional agreement with the towns of Oxford, Charlton, Southbridge, and Auburn for shared services relative to Veterans Affairs. As a result of that, as I said, we had a grandfathering agreement. Now that our VSO is left, we have to provide some additional dollars and hire a full-time position, and hopefully we're going to share those costs with the town of Oxford. So that $32,500 represents a portion of the cost for the full-time VSO that will be hired. Julie is currently under discussions with the other communities to coordinate this, hopefully to take effect July 1. I think Oxford VSO is considering, I don't know, retirement or some other arrangement that needs to be discussed with the other member communities. So we knew this was coming at some point, and at some point will be FY20 or July 1.
Okay. Any questions? Yes, sir.
When was the retirement effective?
When did Larry leave? November? We currently have an interim that is doing an excellent job. He also serves as a building inspector for the town of Millville, but he is a veteran and he's certified VSO.
Great. Yeah, that was my question. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
You were covered.
There was a period of time when Southbridge was helping us with their VSO, their veterans director, while we were looking for an interim.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So is Oxford going to be in the same position based on their population that they're going to need a full-time veteran service person? So is this agreement could come back next year and say that we need this number could in fact double that we need to pay a full salary?
There has to be a certain staffing level for all 4 communities. So the whole right now is 1 full-time VSO.
To cover the 4 member communities?
Right.
And that's, because we're in this arrangement, that will cover us for the foreseeable future?
Yes.
And that, as a full-time position, it's eligible for benefits, but how would that
I think it
work?
would have to be shared benefits.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Anything? I have a question for Ed. So we're getting 75% reimbursement from the state, and I'm glad to hear that we have an interim agent, because that paperwork all has to be filed. Does that reimbursement come on the cherry sheet?
Yes.
Okay, any other questions? So we're going to vote on the line item for the Veteran Service, Town Manager recommendation of $92,750. Do I hear a motion to recommend?
Motion to recommend?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Madam Chair, one other comment relative
Yep.
to veteran services as it applies to the current year that we're in.
Yep.
The relief and medical, and I just ran a projection today, based upon, we've got some new claimants, some new individuals. It's currently running, it's about $6,600 per month, which was above what we were paying earlier, based upon our current claimants. That being said, if that were to trend out, and that can change tomorrow, but that's what we're running at now, we're going to be short about $10,500. So we have enough to pay another month, but I was in advance. I was probably going to bring a transfer in maybe next week or the week. I don't know if you're meeting the week after. There may be a gap where you're not meeting. So I may bring it in advance.
Yep.
Based upon the estimate to get us through June 30th.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you.
Just through the chair, so where would that transfer be coming from? Is that out of reserve, or how does that, you typically take it from?
Probably out of the reserve, but if there are other funds that I can identify other than the reserve, I will request it from those funds. I'll have to take a look at it.
Thank you. Okay, so let's look at the next. We have 3 more to look at. Next is the maturing debt budget. This year's town manager recommendation is $4,702,309, and that is a decrease of $278,000 to last year's appropriation, a 5.59% decrease. Questions?
Madam Chair, we did provide a detailed
Yes.
spreadsheet
Yep.
identifying those costs on both debt and interest.
Thank you. Yep.
Through the chair, if the CFO can just give a layman's version of what we're looking at here in terms of these large numbers and the trends and what things we'll be seeing, what brought us to a decrease this year and we'll see next year.
So I'm going to refer to the printout that we gave you. I think that best explains how this is trending. So if you look at the top portion of the handout that was given to you that's labeled long-term debt, the top part of that report where it's the long-term debt, it's broken out to long-term debt, long-term interest. The long-term debt is the amortization schedule based upon the bond issues that we have issued, and it shows the payments for the life of the bond issue. So you really have to put the 3 pages together, line them up to look at the history of, or the future history of what those payments are going to be. And you can see how it tapers off But this does not account for any future bond issues that we have not gone out for yet. And the same is for the interest on those bond issues. So I'm just going to say, if you look at the high school, which is the top one, we actually went out for a refunding issue and saved the town $3 million as a result of refinancing those bonds. If you follow that along, you're going to see in 2024, we retire that debt. That will be our last debt payment on the high school. So if you look at the level of debt in FY24 and FY25, it drops by $1.5 million. That's primarily because we're retiring the high school debt. So we try to target those areas where we're retiring debt to potentially maybe assume some other debt, whether it be for a public safety facility. We'd like to do it at a time when we have the capacity to do so without increasing the tax rate. So those are some of the things we're looking at. Is that?
It does. No, thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Are any others eligible for refinance like the school loan?
If you look at the interest rate in the middle of the column, in the middle of the page, it ranges anywhere from 2.9 down to 1.3. Those rates are excellent. So we wouldn't, these bonds are callable, but we wouldn't refinance them because we don't believe we can get a better rate, or the savings wouldn't justify the cost of going back out again. Back, I think when we refinanced the schools, we were paying a rate of 5-point-some-odd%, and the refinancing rate was 1.9, so that spread really generated some big savings.
That's great. I think it's important for the town to know, based on our credit rating and all the hard work that has gone into that, that these are the lowest.
That really paid dividends for that refinancing. So it's a combination of bonds being callable, refinancing at a time when the rates were really low, as well as coupled with an improved bond rating. All that helped generate those savings.
Questions? I have a question, Ed. I'm looking at the bond Water Pollution Abatement Trust. Is that a sewer enterprise? Is that a sewer department bond?
No, that was really a bond issue for a study for the stormwater management.
Oh, okay. Yep. And my other question is about the middle school debt. I don't see that here, correct? Have we, or is it here?
It's there, but it's coupled in with general obligation bonds. We didn't go out on a separate bond issues.
Okay.
We combined it with other purposes.
So would that be in the fourth one from the bottom? The amount issued $16 million? Or is it combined in a couple?
It's combined in a couple.
Okay. All right.
I think we had 3 separate bond issues, and I can get you the detail if you want. I think the first one was $10 million. The second one was $5 million, followed by a $2.3 million, and our final one was like $1.7 million. Or actually, I can show that. If you look at the summary page,
Yep.
the one I handed out tonight,
Oh, right. Yep.
on the amounts to be raised in the middle, that has all of our debt exclusions.
Okay. Oh, there we go. All right. Thank you. So we're looking at those bonds being paid off they're in several different years, but the last one will be paid off in, looks like 2035.
So the last one we went out for, we try to minimize the term, the one we just went out for last month, we did 15 years. I think the other one we did 20 years. So we part of our debt policy that you approved is we try to minimize the length of time if we can. And that's something we examine. And that's something we took advantage of. We thought the rates were still pretty good, and we wanted to retire it sooner, 15 versus 20. You could go out for 25 if you want, but we've never gone out for 25. The max we go out for on those bonds is 20. The term is really 18 because we normally go out for a 2-year ban, so it's really paid off over 18 year. But this last piece we did 15 years.
Okay, good, thank you. So, any other questions? Okay, so we were just looking at the maturing debt line item, and then the town manager recommendation is $4,702,309. That represents a decrease of $278,000 to last year, to fiscal 19, and a 5.59% decrease to fiscal 19. Do I hear a motion to recommend?
Motion to recommend.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, and the next budget goes right with that one. That's the interest on our debt. The town manager recommendation is $1,242,703. That includes a $78,821 reduction to fiscal 19, or a 6% reduction to fiscal 19. Any questions? No question? No question? All right, do I hear a, let's see, the line item for interest, $1,242,703. Do I hear a motion to recommend?
Motion to recommend.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good, thank you. All right, the last item, last budget for us to look at today is employee benefits. The town manager and department request is the same, $11,752,264. That includes a $1,806 increase to last year, or a 9.38% increase. So, any questions?
We just get a quick overview of benefits and healthcare costs and.
So, well, let me start with the fixed costs that we know. Worcester Regional Retirement, that's an assessment that we know of. So that's not a projection, that's an actual. We're taking an advantage of about a $60,000 discount if we pay it up front. So that's what we intend on doing. We've done that the past several years. That's an option that didn't exist before, but something that Worcester Regional offers its member communities. So that assessment is net of that $60,000. It would be higher by 60 if we decided to pay it over the course of the year. Medicare, we're using a factor-based, just an estimate. This could be off. It all depends on what the union contracts are settled for. Because it would be 1.45% of any new wages that we pay our employees. So we try to factor that by a percentage during the time we formulate this budget. I work with the HR director in estimating that. So we're pretty close every year. I think last year we had to come in with an additional transfer, minor transfer, but for the most part, that number is, we try to get pretty close with that. And it all depends on new employees as well that we currently don't have on the payroll. So we try to factor that in as well. On the health insurance, that is an estimate based upon a couple of things. Number one, what the trend is in Central Mass. Even though we have our own self-insured trust, we're able to take advantage of that and try to minimize that increase as best we can. But it also provides for an increase for new employees. Right now, we have 15 built in, and that's based upon new positions that are in the 2020 budget, as well as we have to account for retirees too, because when the retirees go out, we still have to pay those health insurance costs as well as their replacements. And we have to consider any movement during open enrollment. So sometimes that's tough to gauge, but we try to build in a little buffer there. The final cost will not be known until June, because that's when we get our reinsurance bids. So this is something that we're going to have to adjust post-annual town meeting. We believe that there hopefully will be some savings there that we'll realize. I don't see it going the other way. I see us reducing that number, but I don't know what that number is right now. So I want to be cautious about that right now. But I can tell you things are looking good, based upon what we're hearing.
Could you go over the strategy for the employees who opt out of the insurance and where that's paid from? Is that included in this?
So the opt-out program was fixed for a period of time. I think there was a 2-year period where you could opt out. That option is no longer available.
Okay.
But we did realize, I think, it was about $120,000 savings.
And somebody always asks this every year, so I'll ask it. On the group insurance, $7.9 million, is there a rough percentage between school and town government on that split?
So we measure that, we pick a payroll in September when school resumes, because that's when all the teachers come back. And based upon that, we calculate an indirect cost that's passed to the school department. That comes into the calculation of total costs associated with school. I believe the year that we're in, the percentage that is school-related is 68%. Actually, I take that back. I think it's 70%. 70% for group health, 66% for Medicare. Now, that changes every year, because I think the year before it was 68% for schools. But you remember, they had, I think, 13 new employees in their budget last year, so they're going to assume a larger share based upon that. I expect it to be very similar for the upcoming year, but we won't make that calculation until mid-September.
Where are we this year with unemployment compensation? I know it fluctuates
I was going to ask.
pretty
Yeah.
wildly
Yeah.
year to year.
We're doing very well. So year-to-date, we've spent $1,247 out of $50,000.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Through the chair, just relative to the group insurance again, so I mean, that's that big difference we see from FY16 of up to current request, it's a little over $2 million increase. How much is that as new employees, just the market itself as far as costs? And then while you're there, just that 70% figure, I know you've last year established a full-time human resources personnel person downstairs, their own office, and are they responsible for all the teachers, or does the school department handle the teachers, and are they trying to market, I guess, savings and with this open enrollment, and were there any teachers that took part in that opt-out component? If that's 70%, are we targeting that market?
So in terms of, let me break this apart. So in terms of new, I think that represents about $300,000 out of that increase.
New employees.
So I think when we add new employees, we assume a family plan for all of them. Kind of worst case scenario, not knowing if someone's going to select, the majority select a family plan. That's one of the perks that really attract people to the organization. So I think the 15, I did a calculation, it was about a little over $300,000. So it's about $1,800 per month for each individual, and if you do the math, it's like $300,000. In terms of the opt-out, I know a number of school department employees opted out. I couldn't tell you what the numbers were, but it was heavier on the schools than it was on the town side, I can tell you that. What was the other question?
Just trending, that $2 million in the, 4-year period. Is most of that just the spike every family saw in healthcare costs? Is that the bulk?
So a major driver, we did major healthcare reform back when we negotiated contracts 3 years ago. We adjusted all of our co-pays over the 3-year period. We are not addressing the co-pay issue on this go-around because we believe that they mirror what other communities are offering. But we always try to contain costs as best we can. I can tell you the prescription drug component of cost really drove a large portion of this number, as any other community did. They were out of control. They have somewhat stabilized now, so we're hoping to see a positive result in the renewal as a result of that. That's why I'm trying to remain optimistic as to what that final number is going to be, because we're seeing that they are stabilizing and not as volatile as they were back 3 years. Even last year, they were volatile. We try to do a number of creative things to try to contain our costs. We try to migrate people over to a better plan if we can. We can't force that. Quite honestly, we have to negotiate that. And we feel we have a number of plans that people have a choice. We have 2 plans. We have Fallon and we have Harvard Pilgrim. We used to have 3, so we actually narrowed it down to try to contain costs by using larger numbers on a single plan. So it's not as volatile as it was several years ago. I think it's more predictable now. And I think our self-insured trust has brought some stability to the health insurance line item. And we try to leverage that as best we can.
Through the chair, I have a comment that flows into a question. So when we look at health insurance and pensioned employees and carrying those benefits through retirement, do our offerings have focuses on preventive care, where folks have plans where they're encouraged to stay healthy now and put in, those preventive actions to stay healthier longer, especially when we look at the cost of medications for diabetes and longer term effects? Is that something that we've looked at, really promoting the preventive well-being as part of the health insurance?
That's a good question. As a matter of fact, that's something that we've focused on the past year, and actually have clinics where people can come and have their blood pressure taken, or have their eyesight taken, or their hearing, or things like that. We do have wellness programs, so we try to be. We look at it as a preventive method of diagnosing people that I guess if we can nip it in the bud and diagnose it early, or they become aware of it early, then I think it saves them money, but it saves the town money as well.
And I know sometimes for some of the blood work you can have done and BMI calculations, there can be a reduced premium for employees, so I didn't know if that had been vetted and looked at for the town.
We also offer programs internally, weight loss challenges and things of that nature that try to get people plugged into a healthier lifestyle. And that's all good, because that, you know, a healthier employee is going to show benefits in the long run.
Any other questions? I think I just had one question, Ed. What's the Medicare penalty line? That's at $36,000. I don't recall what that one is.
So that is a IRS penalty. So those individuals who are Medicare eligible that that didn't go over to the Medicare plan when they turn 65, now they go over at age 65 if eligible, if they paid in for Medicare. That law didn't go into effect. It went into effect probably 3 or 4 years ago. There was no penalty prior to, but there was a penalty for those individuals that didn't go on Medicare at age 65. If they went on at 68 instead of 65, they levy a penalty against the town.
Okay. All right, so we're looking at the pension and benefit line. Town manager recommendation, $11,752,264. That has a $1,806 increase to fiscal 19, or a 9.38% increase. Do I hear a motion to recommend?
Motion to recommend?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, good, thank you. All right. So our next item on the agenda is the discussion of the town meeting warrant, the May 7th, 2019 annual town meeting warrant, and you all have a copy of it. And as Ed has told us, this warrant is at town council now, being checked out, so there might be some changes to it. And we're not going to make recommendations tonight, but we are able to discuss any of the articles and get some more information from Ed or things like that. So does anyone have any questions they want to start with? I have a question, Ed. Do we know yet what our Chapter 90 money will be for Article 11, what the state is going to give us? Or when do we find that out? Yeah.
I'm trying to think. We get a annual allotment about $608,000 a year. We also got a supplemental for the current year that we're in for 120 some odd thousand. My guess, based upon level funding, and it won't be known until the final budget is approved at the state level, we're expecting somewhere in the vicinity of $608,000 again.
Okay, great. And my other question was regarding the revolving account that our school superintendent, Mary Ellen Brunel, talked about. That's going to be, is on an article here to be set up. Can you, is that Article 17, I believe? Yes, Article 17. I wasn't really sure what that was going to be for. Could you tell us about that?
So I think these are, I would consider them out-of-district students.
Yep.
That we get reimbursed on from the receiving community. And I believe she said it's, I want to say she said it's capped at $5,000, even though the cost of educating a student here in Auburn is $13,000. But that money would be deposited in a revolving account if approved by a town meeting, and would be used to offset the cost of educating that student.
Okay, so where does, when we receive the money from another community, well, do we receive it directly from them, or does that come through the cherry sheet?
I think it's a cherry sheet charge. Just
Okay.
I believe it would come through the cherry sheet, but the other community is assessed on the cherry sheet. So there's an assessment and there's a receipt. This would be on the receipt side of Auburn. If those individuals are coming from Worcester, it'd be on the assessment side for Worcester. So I think it funnels through the cherry sheet as I understand it.
Okay, and right now, that money goes into the general fund?
Right now, I don't believe there's a reimbursement that's coming in, unless,
Oh, so is this a new,
I think this is a new, yeah, I think this is a new,
law?
yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on the warrant? Yes, go ahead.
So for Article 33, the tiny house unit, I did see this in the news. It's a very interesting concept, especially for, elderly and disabled community members to be closer to family. Are there any neighboring towns we know of who have this in their bylaws? And is it specific to mobile tiny homes? Because I know there are some permanent tiny homes that can be built as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to, I don't want to misspeak on this. It's my understanding that there are no Central Mass communities that have adopted a bylaw such as this. In terms of the mobile homes or whatever, I really don't know. I know this matter is currently before the planning board. It's being discussed. So I believe it's going to come out with a recommendation as written, but I don't know if there will be any potential amendments as a result of ongoing discussions that are taking place.
It seems just like a very narrow scope. Anticipate some questions. Thank you.
Questions?
Article 21? Yeah, Camp Gleason, the Access Enterprise retained earnings. I know that Chris Hugo has some plans and some ideas, but can we get some further discussion on that?
So I think Julie and both Chris have indicated that the town is in desperate need for additional meeting space. This offers an opportunity to utilize an asset that is currently underutilized. Chris, I can tell you, Chris has offered through his retained earnings to appropriate the $200,000. His certified retained earnings, I believe, is about $380,000, recently certified for a period ending June 30th of 18. That would allow him to equip that facility, rehab the facility, equip it with a working kitchen and a studio that he could tape cooking shows there, as well as have a meeting space that could televise governmental meetings.
And do we know the breakdown of the $200,000 cost? I mean, I know if we're talking commercial kitchen equipment and whatnot, that could eat up a good chunk of that. What percentage is going into renovations and cabling and wiring and safety for that building?
I think that's an estimate that they received through discussions with an architect, based upon the square footage and based upon utilization of our facilities maintenance crew as well, which would help minimize costs as best we can.
Do we have any concerns with reaching a threshold, or does it apply to municipalities? Should that put that amount of money into that facility that we have to make it fully accessible? Because I don't know.
It would have to comply with the current standards based upon the renovation work determined by the building commissioner.
I know the last time I was in that facility, I think the bathroom doors were about 18 inches.
They would have to be handicap compliant.
Do we think that $200,000 is even close to accomplishing that? It just seems like there's a lot there. Just it's been a few years since I've been in the building, but it seems like there's a lot there to get that.
It's amazing what facilities can do. I mean, if you look around this building, the savings that are realized as a result of using our own personnel is we believe, could be accomplished with that $200,000.
Haven't the facilities maintenance people been in that building using it? So
They
have
were using the basement as a workshop.
So maybe...
They recently built an addition down at DPW for their new workshop. They haven't made the move yet. I think they still have some work to finish down there, but I think there's an expectation that they're going to relocate probably within a month.
Okay. So maybe they did some work in the building too, just to improve it for their tenancy there.
In the basement they have,
Okay.
but the primary focus is going to be on the main floor at Camp Gleason.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Just, through the chair, so it seems to be a big dollar one with the sewer department requesting for the emergency force main bypass under Route 20, 2.2 million, another $220,000 below that. Can we just get just a brief...
So I think I believe Jeff spoke on this when he came before you for his budget. And I know he did before the Board of Selectmen. So as best as I can recall, this $2 million would provide for a secondary pipe down in the Pinrock area, which the volume of septage that runs from runs up to the upper Blackstone, its greatest capacity is in the Pinrock area. So we have an aging system, and if that were to fail, it would be more catastrophic than any other pump station in town because of its location and because of the volume that's coming in. I think Jeff estimated that if we do have a failure, it's going to take about 35 trucks on site to dispose of that waste, to pump it from the pump station into these hauling trucks that would just bankrupt the town. So I think at a time when there was some expected work to be done in that area, they were trying to coordinate it by putting that pipe in while they're going to open up the road or while they're doing construction in the area, which makes it more of a cost savings on the town side by synchronizing it with the state work.
Can you just, most of the items are usually relatively small in terms of warrant articles, but something like that. So when it says that much to be borrowed, what does that mean in terms of being borrowed?
So we'd have to go out for a bond issue for a period of up to 30 years and recoup that or pay through that through the rate charged to the users.
Thank you.
So just to continue on that, so to be borrowed, that's the amount to be borrowed, but we don't really have an estimate on the total cost of that because we wouldn't know the interest rate.
Well, first of all, it would be an authorization to borrow up to 2.2, whether he would need that or not, but at least the authorization would be in place. So if he only needed 1.5, we're only going to borrow 1.5. This would also, I believe, qualify for state rate sewer relief. So we would get it would qualify as it stands right now. We would get a reimbursement from the state every year on a portion of the cost we're paying for debt and interest. It's not a big amount, but it's an offset.
Just a question relative to new construction of that, and I know when Jeff was here, he was just talking, we were talking about the electric bills. It always seems to be a giant cost for these pumping stations is electricity every year, and it just, they keep to come back. If we're building brand new facility, are we going to try and find some alternate source, whether there's a gas line there or propane tanks to put outside to sort of minimize? Is that something that Jeff's explored, do you know, or something based on the
I know the
location?
pump stations were rehabbed several years ago, and they got variable speed pumps that run at different RPMs or whatever you call it to realize those savings. So it's not always on high speed, all depending on flow. I think you can set these pumps to run at certain speeds. I think things like that he's always looking at to generate some savings as best he can. In terms of alternate sources, I think we'd be open to looking at anything that would benefit the town that's reliable. I don't know if those other alternate sources are in place to make that accommodation, but I think when you do that, there's a retrofit cost to the equipment as well. I think the time to look at those options is when you're doing an overhaul of the pump stations themselves. And I think that's typically done every 10 or 15 years.
And this one's not, just looking at it, this is not a new station, this is...
No.
This is just a...
This is just a line that runs, an alternate line runs under Route 20.
Questions? We all set? Okay, so we'll look at the warrant next week and vote our recommendations on that. Do we expect to have the town council's review done, so we'll have the most...
Yeah, we're hopeful that he will.
So we'll have the most current warrant then. And then we're also going to talk about Youth Commission next week and vote on the CIP recommendations. And then I think that takes care of the budget, right? As far as we know? Okay, great. So any other...
Madam Chair, we will
Yes.
have the department heads here. Anyone who's sponsoring a warrant article, if your committee should have any additional questions of them,
Okay.
we ask that they be present during the final review, during your recommendation, as well as the Board of Selectmen.
Are they coming, are you saying they'll be at the Board of Selectmen meeting Monday night?
So,
What do you mean the Board of Selectmen?
they take a position on the warrant as well.
Oh, right, okay. Gotcha. All right, any other questions, concerns? No? Okay, so do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Do I hear a motion? First. Yes, okay, there's the first,
No
all
one wants to
right.
go home.
Yeah, so after the first, we have a,
Second.
okay, thank you, all in favor? Aye. Aye, okay, great, thank you.